This submission offers a really detailed analysis of Sydney Sweeney's career, contrasting the huge success of The Housemaid with some of her earlier flops, and it also digs into the feminist meta-commentary in her roles.
Yeah, it's a fascinating collision of data. You've got these hard Hollywood economics on one side and this deep academic critique on the other.
Right.
It's clear the listener has an incredibly sophisticated grasp of both the art and, the market forces driving her.
So let's talk about maximizing that impact.
Exactly.
We need to look at how we can weave those two threads together.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the material makes a really strong case for two separate, insightful observations. You have the strategic box office success of The Housemaid.
And then you have the deep feminist thesis of her whole filmography.
But these two threads, they could be more powerfully unified to create a single cohesive argument.
I agree completely. Right now, it kind of treats the art and the business as these parallel tracks. But the piece is already hinting that they're not parallel. They're actually cause and effect.
That's the key.
Yeah. So the weakness here is that the discussion transitions a little abrupt. We go straight from this really pragmatic, numbers-driven analysis.
The $35 million budget, the $133 million gross, and those wild drop-off numbers.
Wildly stable. That 19% week 1 to 2, and then 3% week 2 to 3. It's incredible. But then it pivots directly into the highly academic analysis of her filmography.
And that academic analysis is dense. I mean, it's framing her roles as a feminist meta-commentary on female sexualization and intrasexual competition, leaning on Jamie Marshall's analysis.
Right.
So when you make that hard turn, that really sophisticated discussion of her living in a gendered prison, it just feels disconnected from the money.
Yeah, it feels disconnected from why The Housemaid was such a monster hit. It reads less like an explanation for the success and more like a separate intellectual side note.
The audience is left trying to build the bridge themselves.
Right.
So the suggestion for improvement here is to introduce that philosophical critique much earlier, like right at the start.
Frame the whole thing with it.
Exactly. Use it as the conceptual framework for her entire brand. Then the numbers become the evidence. They're the proof that the philosophy is actually working. You'd be showing how her intentional, often subversive artistic path, taking on those roles in artsy-fartsy films that always flop, is what set her up.
It's what set up the strategic payoff for when she finally found the perfect commercial vehicle like The Housemaid.
It elevates her. She's not just a savvy actress anymore. She's like a strategic cultural architect.
So let's look at how we can apply that. Take the box office flop of Christie.
Okay.
The submission talks about it as a marketing failure, which, it was.
Sure.
But the suggestion is to use that Marshall analysis to frame it differently, not just as a failure, but as a pure, challenging, and intentionally niche expression of her thesis.
The idea that suffering never produces redemption. She never wins.
Exactly. By establishing that thesis first, you make the flop feel intentional. It becomes a necessary artistic statement that was never designed for mass appeal.
You're showing that she's prioritizing the integrity of her commentary over a quick buck.
And then, conversely, that makes the success of The Housemaid so much more impactful.
Right.
The submission already says The Housemaid is based on a famous feminist anti-marriage book series about women hiring a hitman. So we should position that film as the moment where her consistent, subversive politics finally found a form that was commercially palatable for that massive, underserved female audience.
That's where the power is. The success validates her whole working philosophy. That really controversial idea that you might as well capitalize on being a sexual object while you can.
The box office success isn't a deviation from her dark feminist work.
No, it's the financial proof of its validity, just packaged correctly.
Precisely. If we move that deep conceptual critique to the front, the entire financial story of the $133 million gross, it instantly transforms.
From just a box office hit?
Into a profound intellectual victory. It proves her artistic choices are her business model.
And that thread of strategic business modeling, that leads us perfectly into the next opportunity we saw in the material.
Yeah.
The submission does an excellent job establishing that there's a market failure, but it needs to convert that failure into a definitive industry solution.
The submission establishes so convincingly that Hollywood has basically forsaken female audiences for the past 10 years.
And that's led to all this confusion about what kind of films women actually want to see.
Totally. But the material, it stops just short of transforming the specific financial data from the Housemaid into a definitive, actionable new investment strategy for the whole industry.
Well, the analysis correctly identifies the main reason for the film's success. It was based on an incredibly popular novel among a female audience. And it correctly criticizes Hollywood for just, hijacking male franchises instead, which so often leads to these expensive flops.
But the real significance of the Housemaid data, the low budget, the huge ROI, and, critically, those tiny drop-offs, isn't fully exploited.
It's not used to define the risk profile of this neglected demographic.
Exactly. You've given us the problem, but we need to move from the general complaint about ignoring women to defining a strategic niche based on the actual metrics from this case study.
So the weakness is that it misses the opportunity to use those figures to articulate a really concise, high-impact investment mandate.
And the suggestion for improvement is to use those specific figures to articulate a clear, low-risk, high-return model that Hollywood should adopt, like immediately.
Let's zero in on the financial behavior, because that's the most persuasive data you have.
Right. Most films drop, 50–60% after opening weekend?
Easy. The material notes a 19% drop week 1 to 2, which is already great.
But the most impressive figure, the one that should be in flashing lights, is the 3% drop-off in domestic gross between week 2 and week 3.
15 million down to 14 million.
I mean, that 3% drop is the golden ticket.
It has to be.
You need to frame that tiny decline as definitive, incontrovertible proof of powerful word of mouth and incredible audience loyalty.
It emphasizes that the female demographic is extraordinarily reliable when you serve them specific, tailored content. It's not like the front-loaded, franchise-heavy male market.
I mean, if you can maintain 97% of your week 2 audience into week 3, that is not just a hit. That is proof of a sustainable theatrical model.
It demonstrates that this audience buys tickets over weeks, not just in one opening weekend frenzy.
And that level of financial stability is what defines a low-risk investment.
So that reliability, it has to be built directly into the suggested mandate.
Right. So for a concrete example, we think you should articulate a concise 3-part investment strategy, something an exec could read on a single pitch deck.
First, mid-budget, anchored around that $35 million range.
Second, based on a proven, popular literary source. Colleen Hoover is the obvious parallel, but anything with a huge, dedicated female readership works.
And crucially, third, directed and written by women who understand other women.
That last point is absolutely key. It is not just about the content, it's the execution. And you can solidify this whole argument using the perfect counterexample the material already provides.
The anecdote about people we meet on vacation?
Yes. The fact that it was just dumped straight to streaming.
Even though a bookstore regular arranged a sold-out theatrical screening all by herself. It's brilliant.
It highlights the problem perfectly. The strategy isn't just about having the right content. It's about having faith in movies that are for a female audience and giving them the theatrical platform their data clearly supports.
You use that to conclude the argument. Hollywood doesn't lack the content. It lacks the confidence.
It lacks the confidence to give content for women the same platform and budget afforded to, the 10th installment of a superhero franchise.
And the Housemaid data, specifically that stable 3% drop, it proves that confidence is totally justified.
Which brings us naturally to the final area of focus, and it's maybe the intellectual core of the piece, Sydney Sweeney's brand positioning.
If we accept that her art and her business are strategically linked, then we have to clarify the mechanics of her public identity.
That's where the idea of being underestimated comes in. The core argument that her success is fueled by her willingness to be misunderstood is incredibly compelling.
It's so good.
But the material could be strengthened by clarifying the precise professional boundaries of the strategic ambiguity.
The analysis notes that she is sociopathically okay with being seen as a stupid bimbo.
Yeah.
And that she just refuses to let society indict her self-concept, which is, an incredibly strong line of argument.
It is. However, the weakness we saw is that the discussion briefly diversifies. It gets into these tangential general Hollywood issues.
Right, like mentioning pro athletes hating interviews or the old school mindset.
Those detours, they dilute the focus on what makes her strategy so unique. She isn't just dealing with the general struggles of being famous.
No, she is actively weaponizing misperception.
That's the critical distinction. When the material broadens out, it starts treating her situation as just a symptom of a general celebrity struggle, instead of a calculated, defining choice she is making.
It loses the sharpness of her genius.
So the suggestion is to tighten that focus. We need to isolate this concept of subversive vulnerability, this deliberate act of letting people read you as one thing, punish you for it.
Only to be proven uncharitably judged by your next piece of work.
Yeah, and then demonstrate how her upcoming roles will either continue or shift that narrative tension.
Making her defiance the central active conflict of her public image. That needs to be the priority. This misunderstanding isn't passive.
It's totally it's intentional. We need to highlight that she's putting deep thought into the roles that she takes, and that these roles inherently have feminist subtexts.
Even if they're uncomfortable or unpopular ideas, like her exploration of how claiming empowerment through sexuality isn't empowering.
Exactly. She is choosing roles that force the audience to confront their own assumptions about her.
So, okay, let's use concrete examples of what's coming out. Her rumored involvement in projects like Barbarella, or maybe a Devil Wears Prada too. They shouldn't be framed as just simple role choices. The suggestion is to frame them as calculated, strategic moves.
Moves intended specifically to explore the intersection of beauty, sexuality, and Hollywood exploitation.
Barbarella, especially, is a perfect vehicle for this.
Oh, absolutely. It is explicitly about a sexualized woman in a position of power who is constantly judged by her appearance.
Taking on that role would directly reinforce her core thesis, that the penalty and dismissal for being a sexualized woman exists no matter how smart she is or what she does.
It proves the system is rigged, but that she can still win inside of it.
And the ultimate benefit of being underestimated, which the material has to circle back to, is the artistic payoff.
Right.
Her critics are so focused on her physical appearance, which allows her performances in Euphoria or the controlled chaos of the Housemaid to actively confound their expectations.
Her art becomes the ultimate proof against the simple dismissal of big-breasted blonde bimbo.
So when the material keeps the focus tightly on that dynamic, the gap between the reductive public image and the profound artistic intentionality, the whole piece just sinks.
The underestimation isn't a problem she endures. It's a strategic prerequisite for her artistic shock value.
This material is truly fascinating. It's such a great balance of high-level analysis and hard data. Let's quickly recap the 3 key areas where this can be elevated.
Okay, first, focus on weaving that nuanced filmography critique into the box office metrics. Show, structurally, that her artistic defiance is actually her most effective business strategy.
Second, we highly recommend using the specific success data from The Housemaid, especially that incredible 3% drop-off figure, to codify a new, low-risk Hollywood investment model for the reliably loyal female audience.
Yeah, turn that data into an actionable industry mandate.
And third, tightly focus the misunderstanding theme solely on her specific strategic branding choice. Cut out any general celebrity commentary to really make her subversive vulnerability the central driving conflict of her unique career.
The material submitted already offers an incredibly nuanced understanding of celebrity, art, and market forces. The actionable takeaway is all about integration and focus.
You need to turn these disparate, high-quality analytical pieces into a single, devastatingly sharp thesis.
A thesis that proves Sydney Sweeney is playing a deeper, more intentional game than anyone realized.
It is exceptional work. We really encourage you to implement these suggestions and submit your improved work back to us for a future critique.